Good afternoon. Today, large number of students have requested me, rather they persuaded me that sir, your views are expected, that we are preparing for civil services. So you please guide us on topics related to our GS. So I decided that for the larger benefit of the students, it is in propriety that I should discuss topics one by one. For instance, today I have picked up Industrial Revolution. So I would be discussing Industrial Revolution in different parts so that we can discuss threadbare, point by point, which sometimes appear as a mountainous or so to call Himalayan task for a student to remember. There are many aspects which need to be discussed in detail. Those who are studying GS, for that matter Industrial Revolution for the first time, I know they have studied those things, this topic in the school itself. But at the advanced stage, it becomes slightly difficult to understand some of the jargons, some of the topics, some of the words which are not clear. And my intention would be to simplify those words. For instance, laissez-faire capitalism. What is laissez-faire capitalism? Trade triangle. So, the role of innovations and inventions. So, these are the aspects. Mercantilism. So, these are the issues which are going to be discussed under the heading Industrial Revolution. Now let us discuss what are the causes of Industrial Revolution. This Industrial Revolution are made up of two words. Industrial means it must be comprising of industries, and revolution. Revolution is not something very stagnant. It has to be revolutionary in nature. It has to be, anything which is being done has to be magnified manifold. That is why it is called revolution, which is not in a very systematic manner, something which goes at leaps and bounds. There's the scale, the pace, the speed, everything is fast. That's why it is called Industrial Revolution. Before that, if you just look into the historical pages, the pages of history, it was full of toils, full of struggles, lots of wars being fought amongst countries, especially Europe. The Europe which we see today, very advanced, modernized, it was not this story when Industrial Revolution precisely occurred. The precise date of the Industrial Revolution could be something like 1760 to 1840. That was a period when we remember that in our country, Britishers, they were trying to come in form of colony. They were making colonies and they were trying to colonize our country. By bits and pieces, slowly and gradually, they annexed whole part of India. Now let us discuss what are the causes of Industrial Revolutions. When we discuss about the causes of Industrial Revolution, we must discuss, after all, why and what are the factors which led to Industrial Revolution. What was the economic situation of the society then? What was the need for it? And what was the political scenario then which led to or which impelled the economic strata to move towards Industrial Revolution? Yes. In fact, if we look into the societal scenario of that time, it would be very clear the factors which led to Industrial Revolution. Now, it has four components. The first component is emergence of capitalism. Different forms of government was there, but emergence of capitalism in Europe. When we talk about Europe, the central and the focal point should be Britain, because Britain was the country which were having a lot of resources that time, political as well as innovational. A lot of inventions and explorations occurred during that period, so which was conducive for industrial revolution. So, emergence of capitalism. What is capitalism? Capitalism is made up of the word capital, means, and who owns the capital? Somebody who is rich, entrepreneurs. So there was a time when capitalism emerged in most part of Britain, or so to call most part of Europe, especially Britain. So that capitalism was laissez-faire capitalism. Laissez-faire capitalism means, here as usual I would like to emphasize on the word laissez-faire. What is laissez-faire capitalism? Many children, they don't understand the meaning of the word laissez-faire and they simply move on. Later on, it becomes very difficult for them to explain what does laissez-faire mean. So, let me explain you. Laissez-faire is a word which is a French word, and its etymological mean, if you translate into verbatim, if we translate, it is leave me alone, or let me work alone. Please don't interfere. So before the emergence of capitalism in Europe, there was prevalence of mercantilism, or you can say mercantile capitalism. What does mercantile capitalism means? So mercantile capitalism means, if you go for dictionary meaning of the word mercantile capitalism, you can say that mercantile capitalism is economic counterpart of political absolutism. See, I have used a very difficult looking word, but that's not very difficult. It is just to make you understand. It is the economic counterpart of political absolutism. What is political absolutism? In Europe, those days, it was the monarchs, it was the aristocrats. There was totalitarian system. It was oligarchic system. The rule of the Pope, Church. They are absolute. Whatever they say, how to be corrected, how to be done, how to be implemented. Means no saying of the people. There were massive disagreement. As a result, there was a massive, poverty all around. The people were fighting for the scarce resources which they had. So mercantile capitalism was no more acceptable to the people. So that led to European capitalism. What is European capitalism? That individual entrepreneurs should be given free hand to develop their own economies. They need to plan, they need to invest, they need to set up factories and run the economies as per demand and supply factors of the society. It was then, in 1776, a book titled Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. It's a very popular book. All of you must have heard of the name of it. Wealth of Nation, in which he also propounded a theory that the role of the government should be minimal. So government role should be totally away. It's not the role of responsibility of the government to manage the affairs of economics. It is the private entrepreneurs which should look into the economics. Government should lay off. Their role was not required. So, rise of capitalism that led to laissez-faire capitalism. Laissez-faire capitalism led to growth of individual entrepreneurs which set up factories. They invested their resources, their own savings in setting up factories. And they replaced old traditional mercantile capitalism or mercantile capitalistic economies, which was not acceptable because that was highly centralized and it was oligarchic in nature, aristocratic in nature. What is aristocracy? Nowadays you are seeing that the bureaucracy means the system when bureaucrats are running the system, and that system becomes the system which is run by bureaucrats, that becomes bureaucracy. The system which are run by oligarchs, that becomes oligarchy. Aristocrats, that becomes aristocracy. It means only few people, they have centralized rule, command structure over the resources, whether it is political or economic, and their writ is large. Whatever they say has to be followed. So that system was not acceptable because that was not in the larger interest and for the expansionist interest of the economies. The market factors was not conducive for mercantile capitalism. So mercantile capitalism gave way to European capitalism. We can say European capitalism because that kind of system grew only that part of the world. So, as I told you, from capitalism, mercantile capitalism, it led to European capitalism. And mind you, we are discussing about the Industrial Revolution. The second stage was a rise of imperialism. What is imperialism? You must have, imperialism word itself is made up of imperialism. Imperialism means it is political, economic and all kind of subjugation of other territories or regions by dominant factors. In that case, name few of the countries from the Europe, namely Britain first, then France, Belgium, Spain and Portugal. Mainly these were the leading countries which colonized most part of the world, including North and South America. So once this imperialism started, there was vast expansion of their territorial sovereignty. They annexed most part of the world, may that be North America, South America, Indian, Australia and China. So, and of course Africa. As a result of which, what happened? They had vast territories. And now, domestically in Britain, they were having vast reserves of coal. There was a role of innovations and inventions. It was that time that spinning yarn was invented. From the yarn they were making clothes, and invention of James Watt, invention of a steam engine. So it all led to opening of trade routes to their colonies where they had annexed in different parts of the world. Again, I told you North America, South America, Africa, India, Australia and China. No part of the world was left. And who were the colonizers? Britain, France, Spain, Portugal and Belgium. They were the leading countries whose expansionist attitudes led to growth of imperialism. So mind you, European capitalism, once European capitalism grew up, it gave way. That old traditional way of mercantile capitalism was no more in vogue. Mercantile capitalism gave way to European capitalism. European capitalism gave way to expansionist tendency, which was also called European imperialism. As an imperialistic design, most of this country which I told you now, that is Britain, France, Spain, Belgium and Portugal, they expanded their territorial sovereignty, that is rule over different parts of the world. So once they spread their political expansion, they also opened their market there. They expanded in order to sell their products, because they were already producing a lot of things domestically. In order to sell their products, they in process created trade triangle. It is very important for you to know what is trade triangle. It was a place in North Atlantic which was called trade triangle. Means they took goods from, raw material from North America and South America, produced goods and supplied those goods, finished products, to Africa, rather sold it to Africa. Those days it was not a question of import and export, because there was no question of exporting or importing from country. It was just like forcefully selling and annexing their resources, because there was no control regime then. It was might is right. Industrial revolution, and especially Britain, the question was always the question of might is right. I have annexed your territory and I ask you to purchase my goods, and I will forcefully take your raw material. So what happened? Trade triangle, it was very fascinating to know that they took raw material from America, North America and South America, produced those things in their own domestic countries, sold it in Africa, and returned from Africa. They took slaves and sent those slaves to North America and South America. What for? To be used in the work of plantation, from where they could import raw material. Not import, rather, of course, word is import itself, but if there is no question of taxation, import becomes totally infructuous. So, just see the triangle aspect is complete. They imported they took raw material forcefully from North and South, because North America itself was a colony of the British or the European forces. North America, South America, they took the raw material from that country, processed in their own country, sold the finished product to Africa, and from Africa, in form of barter system, they gave them some finished product, and leave of their charges, they took slaves, human beings, and sold them or sent them to North and South America for plantation and vegetation, so that they could be very handy in producing the raw material for their factories in Europe. So this was very interesting. Raw material was in abundance, workforce was in abundance. So there was a boom in industrial production. Now the third factor was mining of coal. In Britain especially, the coal was very near to their factories. So they extracted the huge workforce which was made surplus. There was a policy called encirclement. So enclosure movement, the big farmers, they were in position to occupy larger farms, as a result of which they gave them they took away the farms of the smaller farmers. As a result, smaller farmers, they become totally indebted. So they sold their farm to the bigger entrepreneurs, and they became landless laborers. So in search of employment, there was a massive exodus of farmers toward the cities, and that was a boon for the industrialists. They required manpower for working in the factories. So there was a huge production of material, both domestically. Once the laborers started working in the factory, they were getting the wages, so they were also purchasing the products which was produced in the factories. Whatever remaining was left, they sold to the colonies. I told you the second stage was European imperialism. They sold to the colonies, and in colonies what they did, for instance India, North America, South America, Australia, China, what they did? They created trade routes. It was not possible for them to sell everything in domestic. So they started selling goods to the colonies, where under the imperialistic tendencies or designs, they had annexed their territorial boundaries and they had made their own part of the colony. So that was a period when industrial produce was at boom, massive industrial production was there, and their outlet was sold in the colonies. So today, I suppose I have been able to discuss some of the areas of causes of industrial revolution. I would be discussing this part in 4 or 5 parts, so that every aspect of negatives of industrial revolution, far-ranging impact of industrial revolution in global history, these are the issues that I would be dealing, so that those who are aspiring for the civil services and also those children preparing for their own different level of competitive examination, it could be very, very, very clear to them. Now let us summarize by recapitulating what I have just narrated. Industrial revolution, causes of industrial revolution in Britain and Europe, where it could be summarized in 4 stages. The first stage, that was existence of mercantile capitalism, that gave way to rise of capitalism. That capitalism was basically called laissez-faire capitalism, which was also endorsed by Adam Smith in his book Wealth of Nations, in which he propounded the theory invisible hand. What is invisible hand? Let the government be away from economic activities. Economic activities, let it be done solely by the private hands, individuals, entrepreneurs, industrialists. So the people, whatever savings they had, they started investing in factories, setting up factories. And after the factories were set up, and that was a period which had seen maximum inventions and innovations. For instance, it was this James Watt which created a steam engine. It was very nice and very easy and very convenient for the people to transport material from one part to the other. So these factors contributed for emergence of industrial revolution. And the last factor which was very essentially, which was significantly contributed to industrial revolution, was emergence of agriculture. That is agricultural revolution, emergence of boom in agricultural production. As a result of agricultural production, what happened? The economies which was till then subsistence economy, केवल खाने पीने तक जो होती थी, from economy which was only from subsistence grew up to opulence. From subsistence to opulence, that marked revolution in agricultural production. So that effects of agricultural revolution, that added significantly, because there was domestic market also, domestic purchasing power of the people, who the produce which was produced in the local market, that was consumed locally also, and after all those which were left out were sold in the colonies. So that was also one of the reasons which led to industrial revolution. Next day we would be dealing in other aspects of the industrial revolution. Thank you very much.